She sat on the Mafia boss's lap to avoid her ex. He said softly, "You're safe with me." The crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow across the ballroom as Mia Monroe kept close to the walls, her heart pounding against her ribs. She'd known coming to the charity gala was risky, but she hadn't expected Vincent to show up. Not here. Not tonight. Her black cocktail dress whispered against her thighs as she moved through the crowd, trying to keep other guests between them. The string quartet's melody barely registered over the rush of blood in her ears. She just needed to make it to the exit without him spotting her. "Going somewhere, Bella?" Vincent's voice froze her in place. Before she could run, his fingers wrapped around her arm like a steel trap. The familiar scent of his cologne made her stomach turn. "Let go of me," Mia said, keeping her voice low to avoid drawing attention. The last thing she needed was to cause a scene. Vincent's grip tightened. "We need to talk." His charm was there, but she knew the violence that lurked beneath it. "You've been avoiding my calls." "There's nothing to talk about." She tried to pull away, but his fingers dug deeper into her flesh. "Everything okay here?" A woman nearby looked concerned. Vincent's smile was pure poison. "Just catching up with an old friend." His other hand settled on Mia's lower back, pushing her toward a quieter corner of the ballroom. "Aren't we, sweetheart?" Panic clawed at Mia's throat. She knew what happened in quiet corners with Vincent. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape route. That's when she saw him. Dominic Castile sat at a table near the bar, his presence commanding even in stillness. Everyone knew who he was, the most dangerous man in the room. His dark suit probably cost more than her car, and the way he watched the crowd reminded her of a predator sizing up prey. Vincent's hand slid possessively up her back. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way." In that moment, Mia made a choice between two dangers. Without hesitation, she yanked free from Vincent's grip and strode toward Dom's table. Her legs shook with each step, but she forced herself to move with purpose. Dom's dark eyes locked onto her as she approached. He didn't move, didn't speak, just watched her with that unnerving intensity. The closer she got, the more her instincts screamed at her to run. But Vincent's footsteps echoed behind her, and she was out of options. "Mr. Castile," she said, surprised at how steady her voice sounded. "I hope you don't mind some company." Before he could respond, she felt Vincent's presence at her back. In pure desperation, she did the unthinkable. She sat directly on Dom's lap, her body trembling despite her bold move. The silence that followed was deafening. Dom's hands settled on her waist, his touch firm but not painful. Heat radiated through the thin fabric of her dress where his fingers rested. She could feel the coiled strength in his body, the absolute control he maintained even in this unexpected situation. "Vincent," Dom's voice was soft but carried an edge that made the hair on the back of Mia's neck stand up. "I believe the lady has made her choice of company for the evening." Mia didn't dare look at Vincent's face, but she could imagine the rage there. She kept her eyes fixed on the champagne glass on the table, trying to control her breathing. "My apologies, Castile. I didn't realize she was with you." Vincent's words dripped with barely contained fury. Dom's grip tightened slightly on Mia's waist as he leaned forward, bringing his lips close to her ear. His breath was warm against her skin as he whispered, "You're safe with me." The words should have terrified her. Coming from him, they should have been the most frightening thing she'd heard all night. Instead, they sent a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with fear. "Before you continue listening, please let me know where in the world are you watching from today." Now back to the story. Dominic's grip on my waist tightened as Vincent approached, our table. The air crackled with tension, and I could feel Dom's chest rise against my back with each measured breath. Miss Monroe, Vincent's voice dripped with false sweetness, I believe we have unfinished business. Dom's thumb traced small circles on my hip, a gesture that seemed both possessive and calming. DeLuca, he said, his voice carrying the kind of authority that made everyone in earshot pause. The lady appears comfortable where she is. Vincent's face twisted into an ugly sneer. This doesn't concern you, Castile. Mia and I have history. Had, I corrected, finding courage in Dom's steady presence. We had history, Vincent. The muscles in Dom's arms flexed as he adjusted his hold on me. You heard her. His tone dropped several degrees colder. Walk away. Vincent took a step forward, his hand reaching toward me. Before he could get close, 2 of Dom's men materialized beside our table, their presence a clear threat. Think carefully about your next move, Dom said, quietly. The warning in his voice made my skin prickle. You're in my territory, using my invitation to harass a woman under my protection. That's 3 mistakes in one evening, DeLuca. I watched Vincent's face cycle through rage, calculation, and finally, reluctant submission. His jaw clenched as he glanced between Dom's men and the exit. This isn't over, Mia, Vincent spat, but his feet were already moving backward. It is, Dom replied for me. Marco, please escort Mr. DeLuca out. Ensure he understands the consequences of returning uninvited. One of Dom's men moved forward, and Vincent had no choice but to turn and leave, his shoulders rigid with suppressed fury. As soon as Vincent was out of sight, I tried to stand, but Dom's grip remained firm. Thank you, I said, pushing against his hands. I should go. No. The single word held enough authority to freeze me in place. Vincent isn't the type to give up easily. He'll be waiting outside. I can handle... You can't. Dom's breath brushed my ear, sending an unwanted shiver down my spine. He's more dangerous than you realize. The DeLucas have been making moves against several families. Tonight wasn't a coincidence. I turned my head to look at him, struck by the cold calculation in his dark eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying, he reached for his whiskey glass with his free hand, that you're now involved in something much bigger than a domestic dispute. Vincent's obsession with you makes you valuable and vulnerable. I don't want any part of this, I insisted, but even as I said it, I knew it was too late. Dom set down his glass and turned me slightly on his lap to face him better. You're already part of it. The moment you chose my lap for sanctuary, you became my responsibility. His eyes hardened. And I take my responsibilities very seriously. I didn't choose. You did. His voice was final. And now you have 2 options. Stay under my protection, or risk whatever Vincent and his family have planned. Choose wisely, Mia. The way he said my name, like he already owned it, made me want to run. But the memory of Vincent's rage, combined with Dom's revelations about larger dangers at play, kept me still. Dom must have read the resignation in my face because his grip softened slightly. You'll have everything you need: protection, comfort, safety. His thumb brushed my hip again. All I ask is that you trust me to keep you alive. I looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of deception. Instead, I found only ruthless determination and something darker, more possessive. This man was offering me safety, but I knew it came with golden chains. Do I have a choice? I asked, already knowing the answer. We always have choices, Mia. Dom's lips curved into a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes. I'm simply offering you the one that doesn't end with you dead in an alley. The chandelier's crystals cast dancing shadows across the marble floor as Mia took a step back from Dom, her heart still racing from their earlier encounter. His dark eyes followed her movement, predatory and calculating. "I appreciate your help tonight," she said, forcing steadiness into her voice. "But I can handle Vincent on my own." Dom's laugh was low and dangerous. "Handle him? Like you did just now?" He gestured to where she'd been sitting on his lap minutes ago. "That wasn't handling anything, Kara. That was running scared." Heat crept up Mia's neck. "I'm not your Kara, and I don't need your protection." She grabbed her clutch from the table, ready to make her escape. "I've survived worse than Vincent DeLuca." "Have you?" Dom's voice dropped lower as he closed the distance between them. "You don't know what he's capable of, what he's done since you left." Mia's stomach churned. "Stop trying to scare me." "I'm trying to keep you alive." His fingers brushed her arm and she jerked away. "Vincent's not just some abusive ex anymore. He's unhinged, dangerous, and you're not?" The words slipped out before she could stop them. A ghost of a smile crossed Dom's face. "Oh, I'm very dangerous, Mia, but not to you." The weight of his gaze made her skin prickle. She knew what he was, had heard the whispers about Dominic Castile, the man who'd built his empire on blood and bones. Being in his debt would be trading one cage for another. "I have a life," she insisted. "A job, an apartment. All of which mean nothing if you're dead." He moved closer, backing her against the wall. "Vincent won't stop. Not until he has you or destroys you." The truth of his words hit her like ice water. Still, she lifted her chin. "I won't be controlled again." "This isn't about control." His hand came up to rest beside her head, caging her in. "This is about survival." A commotion near the entrance made them both turn. Vincent's voice carried across the room, his words slurred with alcohol and rage. "Where is she? That bitch thinks she can humiliate me?" Mia's blood ran cold as she watched Vincent shove past security, his face twisted with fury. A gun glinted in his waistband. "Still think you can handle him?" Dom's breath was warm against her ear. Vincent's eyes locked onto her, and the hatred she saw there made her knees weak. "You're dead," he snarled. "You hear me? Dead." Security finally caught up, dragging him back, but the damage was done. Mia could barely breathe, the reality of her situation crushing down on her. Dom's hand found the small of her back, steady and warm. "My offer stands, but you need to decide now." She closed her eyes, fighting back tears of frustration. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. It was survival, just as he'd said. Being under Dom's protection meant being owned by him, but at least she'd be alive. "Fine," she whispered, hating how her voice shook. "I'll stay with you." His other hand came up to cup her face, forcing her to look at him. "Say it properly, Mia. I need to hear you agree." She met his dark gaze, seeing both danger and safety in those depths. "I accept your protection, Mr. Castile." "Dominic," he corrected, his thumb brushing her cheek. "If you're under my protection, you use my first name." "Dominic," she repeated, the name feeling like a surrender on her tongue. The elevator ascended silently to the top floor of the glass and steel tower. Mia stood as far from Dom as the confined space allowed, but his presence filled every inch. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she watched his reflection in the mirrored walls. Even in silence, he radiated danger. The doors opened directly into his penthouse. Mia's heels clicked against marble floors as she stepped into a space that screamed both luxury and loneliness. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the glittering city below, but the interior felt stark, more like a fortress than a home. "This will be your cage for now," Dom said, shrugging off his suit jacket. "Make yourself comfortable." Mia wrapped her arms around herself. "You don't have to do this. I can handle Vincent on my own." Dom's laugh was sharp and without humor. "Like you handled him tonight?" He loosened his tie, the movement deliberate and somehow threatening. "Let's be clear about something, Bella. I'm not doing this out of the kindness of my heart." Two armed men appeared from separate hallways, their presence a reminder that this wasn't just a luxury apartment, it was a command center. They nodded to Dom before taking positions near the elevator. "Your security detail," Dom explained, pouring himself a drink from a crystal decanter. "They'll ensure you don't do anything foolish, like try to leave." Mia's throat tightened. "So I'm a prisoner." "You're an investment." He took a slow sip, his dark eyes never leaving her face. "Vincent crossed a line tonight. His obsession with you has become inconvenient. By keeping you here, I solved two problems at once." "What's the second problem?" Mia asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. Dom set his glass down and closed the distance between them. His fingers traced her jaw, and she fought the urge to step back. "You intrigue me, Mia Monroe, and I always take what interests me." The casual possession in his touch made her shiver. This close, she could smell his expensive cologne mixed with something darker, more dangerous. His thumb brushed her lower lip, and her breath caught. "The master bedroom is down that hall," he said, stepping back. "You'll find everything you need. My staff will bring you clothes tomorrow." He gestured to a door on the left. "That's my office. It's off limits. The rest of the penthouse is yours to explore." A guard appeared with her purse, the one she'd left at the gala in her panic to escape Vincent. The reality of her situation crashed over her. She was trading one dangerous man for another, but at least this one seemed to have rules. "What exactly do you expect from me?" she asked, hating how small her voice sounded. Dom's expression remained unreadable. "For now, stay put. Don't cause trouble. Accept that this is your new reality until I decide otherwise." He moved to his office door, then paused. "And Mia, don't mistake my protection for weakness. Cross me, and you'll find I'm far worse than Vincent could ever be." The door closed behind him with a soft click that felt like a prison gate slamming shut. Mia sank onto a leather sofa, her legs finally giving out. The city lights twinkled beyond the windows, so close yet completely out of reach. She was trapped in a golden cage with a man who made no pretense about his darkness. Yet as she sat there, listening to the quiet hum of the air conditioning and the subtle movements of the guards, she couldn't deny the relief that washed over her. For the first time in months, she didn't have to look over her shoulder for Vincent. She didn't have to jump at every shadow or sleep with one eye open. She was safe, even if that safety came with its own kind of danger. Dom Castile might be a devil, but he was a devil who kept his word. And right now, that was all she had to hold on to. The elevator doors opened to Dom's penthouse, and Mia stepped into what felt like a golden cage. Sleek marble floors stretched beneath her feet, and floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city that made her feel small. Everything screamed money and power, from the Italian leather furniture to the crystal decanters catching light on the bar. Dom moved past her, his presence filling the space. "Make yourself comfortable. This is home for now." Mia wrapped her arms around herself. "How long is for now?" "As long as it takes." He loosened his tie, and for a moment, Mia caught a glimpse of weariness in his movements. "Vincent won't stop until he gets what he wants, or until I stop him." The casual way he mentioned violence made her shiver. You make it sound so simple. Nothing in this life is simple. Dom poured himself a drink, the amber liquid, catching the light. His shoulders tensed, and Mia noticed how he kept glancing at his phone, checking security cameras on a tablet. You do this often? She asked. Take in strays who need protection? His laugh was harsh. No, you're the first. Why me? Dom's jaw tightened. He moved to the window, staring out at the city lights. Because I know what it's like to be hunted. Something in his voice made Mia pause. She'd expected cold calculation, not this hint of understanding. She watched as he stood there, his reflection in the glass showing something raw in his expression. You're not what I expected, Mia said softly. And what did you expect? Someone more... She searched for the right word. Heartless. Dom turned to face her, and for a moment, his mask slipped. We all have hearts, Mia. Some of us just learn to hide them better. He walked to a painting on the wall, a dark piece showing a family portrait. His fingers traced the frame. I was 19 when they came for my family. Middle of the night, professional hit. His voice grew distant. I wasn't home. I was out with friends, being young and stupid. Mia's breath caught. She hadn't expected this vulnerability, this glimpse behind the armor. They killed everyone. My parents, my little sister. His knuckles went white on his glass. The family business, this life, it wasn't supposed to be mine. Not this young, not like this. I'm sorry, Mia whispered, meaning it. Don't be. It made me who I am. He turned back to her, his eyes hard again. It taught me that the only way to protect what's yours is to be the most dangerous person in the room. Mia felt the weight of his words. She saw him differently now, not just as the cold Mafia boss who'd taken control of her life, but as someone who'd been shaped by loss and pain. It didn't make him less dangerous. If anything, it made him more so. That's why you're helping me? She asked. Because you understand what it's like to be powerless? Dom's expression darkened. I'm helping you because I choose to. And because once I choose to protect something, I don't let go. The possessiveness in his voice sent a shiver down her spine. Part fear, part something else she didn't want to examine too closely. She watched as he moved around the penthouse, checking locks and security systems with practiced ease. This man had built an empire from the ashes of his family's murder. He'd turned his pain into power. Mia understood now why everyone feared him, why Vincent had backed down at the gala, but understanding didn't equal trust. Get some rest, Dom said, his mask firmly back in place. Tomorrow, we'll set some ground rules. Mia nodded, knowing she was trapped in this beautiful prison with a man who'd learned to turn his heartbreak into a weapon. She couldn't help but wonder if his protection would end up being just another kind of cage. The black dress felt like armor against my skin. Dom had it delivered this morning. A designer piece that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The fabric whispered against my legs as I walked beside him into the dimly lit restaurant, his hand pressed firmly against the small of my back. Remember what I told you? Dom's voice was low, meant only for my ears. Stay close. Don't wander. I nodded, trying to ignore how his touch sent shivers down my spine. The restaurant was exclusive, the kind of place where deals were made in shadows and secrets were traded like currency. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across marble floors, but the luxury couldn't hide the underlying current of danger. Castile, a man's voice called out. Didn't expect to see you here tonight. Dom's posture shifted subtly. His fingers tightened against my back as he turned us to face the speaker. The man approaching was older, his silver hair slicked back, expensive suit hanging perfectly on his frame. But his eyes were cold, calculating. "Salvatore?" Dom acknowledged with a slight nod. "I always make time for important occasions." I could feel the tension crackling between them. This wasn't just a casual greeting. It was a dance of power and territory. Dom guided me to our table, positioning himself so he could see both the entrance and Salvatore's table. "That's Marco Salvatore," Dom explained quietly as he pulled out my chair. "He controls the shipping routes along the coast, and he's not happy I've been expanding my interests in that direction." The waiter appeared with champagne I hadn't seen Dom order. Everything here seemed to operate on unspoken commands and subtle signals. I took a sip, grateful for something to do with my hands. "Why bring me here?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "Isn't it dangerous?" Dom's dark eyes met mine across the table. "Everything in my world is dangerous, Mia, but sometimes showing weakness is more dangerous than facing threats head-on." His fingers brushed mine as he reached for his glass. "Having you here sends a message." "What message?" "Is that I'm not hiding, that I'm confident enough to bring someone He paused, something flickering in his expression. "Someone under my protection into the open." More men in expensive suits filtered into the restaurant. Each time the door opened, Dom's attention shifted slightly, assessing, calculating. I noticed how others in the room watched him too. Some with fear, others with barely concealed hostility. A young man at a nearby table kept glancing our way, his hand occasionally drifting inside his jacket. One of Dom's men materialized beside our table, whispering something in his ear. Dom's jaw tightened. "The Rossi family is getting bold," he muttered, more to himself than to me. "They shouldn't be here tonight." My heart rate picked up. I'd heard of the Rossis. They were notorious for their brutality, even by Mafia standards. "Should we leave?" "No." Dom's voice was steel. "We stay. We finish our meal. We show no fear." His hand found mine across the table, his grip firm and possessive. "This is my world, Mia. This is how I live, always watching, always ready. But I promise you, no one in this room would dare touch what's mine." The evening continued like this, an elegant meal wrapped in layers of unspoken threats and power plays. I watched Dom navigate it all with practiced ease. He shifted seamlessly between charming conversation with me and subtle shows of dominance toward others. When Salvatore passed our table again, Dom's arm draped possessively across the back of my chair, a clear signal of both ownership and warning. The danger was palpable, like electricity in the air before a storm. But what struck me most was how natural it seemed to Dom. He didn't just survive in this world of shadows and threats, he thrived in it. Every challenge was met with calculated precision, every potential threat neutralized before it could materialize. And despite my fear, despite knowing I was surrounded by some of the most dangerous men in the city, I felt oddly secure. Dom's presence was like a shield, his attention never wavering from potential threats while keeping me close. This was his element, and watching him command it was both terrifying and fascinating. The silk dress felt like a cage against Mia's skin. She stood in front of the mirror in Dom's penthouse, trying not to think about how perfectly the black designer gown fit her curves. He'd had it delivered that morning, another reminder that she was under his control. Her fingers traced the delicate beading at the neckline. The dress probably cost more than she made in 3 months. Everything about Dom's world screamed excess and power, from the marble floors to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Are you ready?" Dom's deep voice came from behind her. Mia's breath caught as she saw him in the mirror. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit that made him look even more dangerous than usual. His dark eyes met hers in the reflection, and something hot coiled in her stomach. "I didn't ask for any of this," she said, hating how breathy her voice sounded. Dom moved closer, his presence overwhelming her senses. "No, you didn't. But here we are." His hand came to rest on her bare shoulder, and Mia couldn't suppress the shiver that ran through her body. She watched in the mirror as his thumb traced small circles on her skin. "Stop," she whispered, but there was no conviction in her voice. "Stop what?" His other hand settled on her waist, and Mia felt trapped between his body and the mirror. "Stop protecting you? Stop keeping you safe? Stop acting like you own me." Mia tried to step away, but Dom's grip tightened slightly. "I don't own you, Mia." His voice dropped lower, sending another shiver down her spine. "But I am responsible for your safety now, whether you like it or not." The worst part was that she did like it. At least part of her did. The part that remembered how helpless she'd felt with Vincent. The part that had seen Dom's power firsthand and knew that no one would dare touch her while she was under his protection. But there was another part of her that rebelled against this gilded cage. She didn't want to need anyone's protection. She didn't want to feel this pull toward a man who killed people for a living. "I can take care of myself," she insisted, turning to face him. Dom's laugh was dark and without humor. "Like you took care of yourself with Vincent? He would have dragged you out of that gala if I hadn't stepped in." Anger flared in Mia's chest. "That's not fair. Life isn't fair, sweetheart." His hand moved from her shoulder to cup her face. "But I can make it safer for you, if you let me." Mia tried to ignore how good his touch felt, how safe she felt despite knowing exactly what those hands were capable of. She'd seen the news reports about his rivals disappearing. She knew the violence that lurked beneath his controlled exterior. "I don't want to be part of your world," she said, but even to her own ears, it sounded weak. "Too late." Dom's thumb brushed across her bottom lip. "You've been part of this world since the moment Vincent laid eyes on you. The only difference now is that you have someone who can actually protect you." Mia pushed against his chest, needing space to think, but Dom caught her wrists in one hand, pulling her closer instead of letting her retreat. The movement brought their faces inches apart. "Let go," she demanded, but her body betrayed her. Instead of pulling away, she found herself swaying toward him. "Make me," he challenged, his eyes darkening as they dropped to her lips. The tension between them crackled like electricity. Mia could feel her resolve weakening with every breath. She knew she should fight harder against this attraction, against the way her body responded to his proximity. But with his hands on her skin and his scent surrounding her, resistance felt impossible. "I hate this," she whispered, even as her free hand fisted in his jacket. "No, you don't." Dom's voice was confident, knowing. "You hate that you want it." Mia stared at her phone, her hands trembling as she read Vincent's latest message. 3 days of silence had given her false hope that maybe he'd finally backed off. She should have known better. "You can't hide behind Castile forever. You belong to me." The morning sun streaming through Dom's penthouse windows did nothing to warm the chill that ran through her body. She deleted the message, like she had done with all the others, but the words were already burned into her mind. Movement caught her eye, one of Dom's security men pacing the terrace outside. They were everywhere lately, silent shadows that followed her every move. She wasn't sure if they were protecting her or keeping her prisoner. Maybe both. The elevator dinged, and Mia's heart jumped until she recognized Marco, Dom's most trusted lieutenant, stepping into the penthouse. His face was grim. "Ms. Monroe, we've got a situation." He held up his phone, showing her a photo that made her stomach turn. It was her, yesterday, having coffee at her favorite cafe. The angle suggested it was taken from across the street. "Vincent's men are watching you." Mia sank onto the leather couch, her legs weak. "I thought that place was safe. It's only 2 blocks away." "Nowhere is safe right now," Marco said flatly. "The boss won't be happy about this." As if summoned by his name, Dom emerged from his home office. He took one look at Mia's face, and his expression hardened. "What happened?" Marco showed him the photo. Dom's jaw clenched, the muscle ticking beneath his skin. Without a word, he pulled out his phone and made a call. "Double the security detail. I want eyes on every corner within 10 blocks. If anyone associated with Vincent shows their face, deal with them." His voice was ice cold, promising violence. Mia hugged herself, hating how her body trembled. "I can't live like this. I'm not your prisoner." Dom's dark eyes fixed on her. "No, you're not. You're something far more valuable." He dismissed Marco with a wave and moved closer to her. "Vincent's obsession makes you a liability, but you're also the perfect weapon against him." "I'm not a weapon," Mia snapped, standing up to face him. "I'm a person. I didn't ask for any of this." "No, you didn't." His voice softened slightly as he reached out, his fingers grazing her cheek. "But here you are, under my protection, and I protect what's mine." The possessiveness in his touch sent heat coursing through her body. She wanted to pull away, to reject the claim in his words, but found herself leaning into his hand instead. "I'm not yours either," she whispered, but the words lacked conviction. Dom's lips curved into a knowing smile. "Aren't you?" His thumb traced her bottom lip, and Mia's breath caught. "Your body says otherwise, Kara." The Italian endearment rolled off his tongue like honey, making her knees weak. This was dangerous, more dangerous than Vincent's threats, because while Vincent inspired fear and revulsion, Dom's touch made her want to surrender. "The security measures are for your own good," he continued, his hand dropping to her throat, resting there possessively. "I won't let him hurt you again." Mia closed her eyes, fighting the conflicting emotions warring inside her. Dom's protection came with golden chains, each day drawing her deeper into his world of power and darkness. But with every threat from Vincent, every moment of fear, she found herself turning to Dom like a flower seeking the sun. "Your men follow me everywhere," she said quietly. "I feel like I can't breathe." "Better breathless than dead." His blunt words made her flinch, but his touch remained gentle. "Trust me, Mia. Just trust me." Trust. Such a simple word for such an impossible thing. But as Dom's hand slid from her throat to cup the back of her neck, Mia realized she was already falling. Despite the danger, despite the possessiveness, despite everything she knew about who and what he was, she was falling for the devil himself. A notification pinged on Dom's phone, drawing his attention away. His expression darkened as he read whatever message had come through. Without explanation, he turned and barked orders into his phone, coordinating his men like pieces on a chessboard. Mia watched him, seeing both the protective savior and the dangerous Mafia boss. The duality should have frightened her, but instead, it drew her in deeper, like a moth to a flame that would either warm her or burn her to ashes. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Dom's penthouse, but Mia felt anything but warm. She paced the marble floors, her bare feet silent against the cold surface, while Dom watched her from behind his desk. His dark eyes tracked her every movement like a predator studying its prey. "You can't keep me locked up here forever," Mia said, running her fingers through her hair in frustration. "I need to work. I need to live my life." Dom's jaw tightened. Vincent's men were spotted outside your workplace yesterday. His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. You're not going anywhere until I handle this situation. Handle this situation? Mia spun to face him. Like you've been handling it for the past 2 weeks? I'm suffocating here, Dom. He stood slowly, his movements deliberate and controlled. The suit he wore probably cost more than her monthly rent, but it was his presence that commanded attention. You think I enjoy this? Watching you pace these floors like a caged animal? Don't I look like one? She gestured to herself, wearing one of his expensive silk robes over her nightwear. You've turned me into your personal prisoner. Dom moved around the desk, each step bringing him closer. Mia fought the urge to step back. A prisoner? His voice dropped lower. Is that what you think this is? What else would you call it? Your men follow me, everywhere. I can't even go to the grocery store without an escort. Protection, he said, now close enough that she could smell his cologne. Though you seem determined to fight me on every measure I take to keep you safe. Mia's heart raced, but she stood her ground. Because you don't trust me, you think I'm going to run straight back to Vincent, don't you? Something dangerous flashed in Dom's eyes. His hand shot out, gripping her chin, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to hold her in place. If I thought that, you wouldn't be here. You'd be in a cell somewhere until this mess was over. The threat should have frightened her. Instead, heat pooled in her belly. So what's stopping you? His thumb traced her bottom lip, the gesture at odds with his harsh words. Because despite your stubborn resistance to everything I do, I see the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. Mia's breath caught. Don't lie. His voice was rough. You're terrible at it. She tried to turn away, but his grip held firm. Let go of me. Make me. The challenge in his voice made her pulse quicken. She placed her hands on his chest, meaning to push him away, but the solid warmth of him under her palms made her hesitate. This isn't about trust, Dom said, his free hand sliding to her waist. This is about you being afraid to admit what you want. What I want is my freedom. No. He pulled her closer until their bodies were flush against each other. What you want is to stop fighting this attraction between us. You want to give in, but you're scared of what that means. Mia's fingers curled into his shirt. You don't know what I want. Then tell me. His breath fanned across her lips. Tell me why you shiver every time I touch you. Tell me why your pulse races when I'm close. His thumb pressed against her throat, feeling her racing heartbeat. Tell me why you haven't pushed me away yet. She swallowed hard. Because you're right, she whispered. I am scared. Something softened in his expression. I know, Tesoro, but being scared doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're smart enough to recognize danger. Are you dangerous, Dom? His lips curved into a dark smile. Very, but not to you. Never to you. The admission hung between them, heavy with promise and threat. Mia felt herself swaying toward him, drawn by the magnetic pull of his presence. His grip on her chin loosened, sliding to cup her cheek instead. I need to get you somewhere safe, he said, his thumb stroking her skin. Somewhere Vincent won't think to look. More isolation? She meant it to sound angry, but it came out breathless. Consider it a change of scenery. His eyes dropped to her lips. Unless you'd rather stay here and continue fighting me on everything. The tension between them crackled, electric and dangerous. Mia knew she should pull away, should maintain the walls she'd built around her heart, but with Dom's hands on her, his scent surrounding her, Those walls were crumbling faster than she could rebuild them. The dim light of Dom's study cast long shadows across his face as he stood by the window, his silhouette dark against the city lights below. Mia watched him from her position on the leather armchair, noting how his shoulders carried an invisible weight. The silence between them felt different tonight, less threatening, more loaded with unspoken words. "You want to know why I don't trust anyone?" Dom's voice was low, barely above a whisper. He didn't turn to face her. "Because trust gets you killed in this world." Mia's fingers traced the smooth leather of the armrest. "Is that what happened to your family?" He tensed, and for a moment she thought she'd pushed too far, but then his hand moved to his collar, slowly unbuttoning his shirt. "See this?" He finally turned, revealing a long scar that ran from his collarbone to his chest. "My father's best friend gave me this the night they killed my family. A man who used to bring me birthday presents." Mia's breath caught in her throat. The scar was old, but still angry-looking, a permanent reminder of betrayal. She found herself standing, moving closer to him without conscious thought. "I was 17. Dom continued, his eyes distant. "They waited until we were all having dinner together. My mother had made her famous lasagna." His jaw clenched. "They shot her first, right across the dinner table." Mia's hand trembled as she reached out, her fingers hovering near the scar, but not quite touching it. Dom caught her wrist, his grip firm, but not painful. "Don't," he warned, but there was something vulnerable in his eyes. "What happened then?" she asked softly. "I fought back. Got this for my trouble." He gestured to the scar. "Would have died there if my father hadn't." He stopped, swallowing hard. "He used his last breath to shoot the bastard who stabbed me. Saved my life." The city lights flickered behind them, casting shifting shadows across Dom's features. Mia could see the young boy he'd been, transformed overnight into the man who now ruled the criminal underworld with an iron fist. "After that, I learned. Trust is a luxury I can't afford." His thumb absently stroked the inside of her wrist, sending shivers down her spine. "Every person who gets close is a potential threat. Every smile could hide a knife." "That's a lonely way to live," Mia whispered. Dom's laugh was harsh. "Lonely is safe. Lonely keeps you alive." He released her wrist and moved to pour himself a drink. "You think Vincent is dangerous? He's nothing compared to what's out there. What I've seen. What I've had to become." Mia watched him knock back the amber liquid. "Is that why you keep me here? Because you think I'm a threat?" He set the glass down with more force than necessary. "I keep you here because you're—" He stopped, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "You're different, and that makes you the most dangerous person in my life, right? Now." The confession hung heavy in the air between them. Mia's heart hammered in her chest as she processed his words. This powerful, feared man saw her as dangerous, not because she could hurt him physically, but because she could breach the walls he'd built around himself. "I haven't let anyone this close since that night," Dom admitted, his voice rough. "Not until you sat on my lap at that gala. Do you know what that did to me? Having you trust me instinctively like that." Mia remembered that moment, the desperation, the fear, and the inexplicable feeling of safety she'd found in his arms. Now, looking at the scars of his past laid bare before her, she felt something shift inside her. The man who had seemed so cold and calculating was showing her his broken pieces, and instead of being repulsed, she found herself wanting to understand him more. But as she stood there, watching him pour another drink with steady hands that had surely ended lives, a chill ran down her spine. This was still Dominic Castile, the man who ruled the underground with brutal efficiency, the same man who could order deaths with a single nod. Her heart ached for the boy who'd lost everything, but could she really be falling for the man he'd become? Mia's fingers traced the rim of her wine glass, the crystal catching the dim light of Dom's penthouse living room. The city twinkled beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, a landscape of lights that usually calmed her. Tonight, it felt like thousands of eyes watching her every move. "You're quiet tonight," Dom said, his voice softer than usual. He sat across from her in his leather armchair, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms marked with subtle scars. Mia took a long sip of wine. "I keep thinking about Vincent," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, "about how it started." Dom's posture shifted, almost imperceptibly, his dark eyes fixed on her with that intensity that made her feel both exposed and protected. "Tell me." "He wasn't always—" Mia's throat tightened. "At first, he was charming, protective. I thought that's what love looked like." She let out a bitter laugh. "But then the control started. Small things at first, questioning who I talked to, where I went." Dom remained silent, but his jaw clenched. His fingers gripped his tumbler of whiskey tighter. Then came the accusations, the anger. He'd apologize after, buy me expensive gifts. Mia's voice trembled, until he stopped apologizing altogether. "When did you try to leave?" Dom's question was gentle, but she could hear the underlying current of rage. 3 times. Mia stood up, needing to move, to breathe. She walked to the window, pressing her forehead against the cool glass. "The first time, he found me at my friend's house. The second time, he threatened my family. The third time—" She wrapped her arms around herself, remembering the terror. She heard Dom rise from his chair, his footsteps nearly silent on the plush carpet. He stood behind her, close enough that she could feel his warmth but not touching her. "The third time?" he prompted. "He put me in the hospital." The words came out in a rush. 3 broken ribs, a fractured wrist. The doctors knew, but I was too scared to press charges. He had too many connections. Dom's reflection in the glass showed a flash of something deadly in his eyes. His hands hovered near her shoulders, asking permission. When she didn't flinch away, he placed them there, solid and warm. "Look at me, Mia." She turned slowly, finding herself caught in his intense gaze. Up close, she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, the subtle lines of stress around his mouth. "I know what you are, Dom," she whispered. "I know you're dangerous. Maybe even more dangerous than Vincent, but I feel safe with you, and that terrifies me more than anything." Dom's hand moved to cup her face, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "I am dangerous," he agreed. "I've done things that would horrify you, but never to someone I—" He caught himself, something vulnerable flickering across his features. Mia leaned into his touch, her heart thundering in her chest. "To someone you what?" Instead of answering, Dom pulled her closer, one arm wrapping around her waist. His forehead rested against hers, their breaths mingling. "Vincent will never touch you again," he promised, his voice rough with emotion. "I'd burn this city to the ground before I let that happen." Mia clutched at his shirt, feeling the solid warmth of him beneath the expensive fabric. "Why? Why do you care what happens to me?" Dom's other hand tangled in her hair, gentle despite the power she knew those hands possessed. "Because you see me," he said simply. "Not the Mafia boss, not the monster everyone fears. You see past all that, and you're still here." The raw honesty in his voice made her chest ache. She'd never seen him this vulnerable, this human. The walls he kept so carefully constructed were crumbling just for her. "I'll protect you," he murmured against her temple, "with everything I am, everything I have, no matter what it takes." In that moment, wrapped in his arms with the city spread out below them, Mia believed him. Despite everything she knew about him, despite the danger that clung to him like a second skin, she believed him. The evening shadows crept across Dom's office as Mia watched him work. The steady tap of his fingers on the keyboard was the only sound breaking the tense silence. She'd gotten used to these quiet moments over the past weeks, finding an odd comfort in his presence despite everything. A commotion outside shattered the peace. Dom's head snapped up, his expression darkening as voices echoed from the hallway. The door burst open, and Vincent strode in, flanked by two of Dom's security men who looked apologetic and frustrated. "Boss, he wouldn't—" one started. Dom raised his hand, silencing him. His eyes never left Vincent, who wore a smirk that made Mia's stomach turn. "You're getting sloppy, Castile," Vincent drawled, hands in his pockets. "Your security isn't what it used to be." Mia felt her heart hammer against her ribs. She hadn't seen Vincent this close since the gala, and his presence made her palms sweat. Dom stood slowly, his movements deliberate and controlled. "You have exactly 30 seconds to explain why you're in my territory before I have you removed. Permanently." Dom's voice was ice cold. Vincent's eyes found Mia, and his smile widened. "Just checking on what's mine, making sure she's being treated right." "I was never yours," Mia snapped, though her voice trembled. Dom moved then, positioning himself between Mia and Vincent. "She's under my protection now. You know what that means in our world, DeLuca." Vincent's facade cracked slightly. "Our world? She doesn't belong in our world. She's just a civilian you're playing house with. And yet, here you are, risking a war over her." Dom's words carried a deadly promise. Vincent took a step forward, and Dom's men immediately drew their weapons. "You think this is about her? This is about respect, Castile. You took something of mine." "I'm not yours to take," Mia shouted, stepping out from behind Dom. Vincent's face contorted with rage. "Everything you have now, the safety, the luxury, it's temporary. He'll tire of you just like all the others. But me? I'll always want you back, Bella. Always." Dom moved so fast Mia barely saw it. One moment he was beside her. The next he had Vincent pinned against the wall, forearm pressed against his throat. "That's the last time you speak to her," Dom growled. "The last time you look at her. The last time you breathe the same air as her. Are we clear?" Vincent struggled, his face reddening. "You can't keep her locked up forever. Watch me." Dom released him, and Vincent stumbled, gasping for air. He straightened his jacket, trying to maintain some dignity. "This isn't over, Castile." "It is for you." Dom nodded to his men. "Get him out of my sight." As they dragged Vincent away, his words echoed back. "I'll be seeing you soon, Bella." The door slammed shut, and silence fell again. Mia's legs felt weak, and she gripped the edge of Dom's desk for support. He turned to her, his expression unreadable. "You're trembling," he observed. "I'm fine," she lied. Dom stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "No, you're not. But you will be." His hand cupped her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze. "You're mine now, Mia. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be." "I don't belong to anyone," she whispered, but the words lacked conviction. His thumb traced her bottom lip. "You do." You have since the moment you chose my lap as your sanctuary. I protect what's mine, and I don't let go easily." The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened her, but instead it sent a shiver down her spine. His other hand settled on her waist, pulling her closer. "Vincent will never touch you again," Dom promised, his breath hot against her ear. "No one will. You're under my protection, in my world now. Fighting it will only make things harder." Mia knew she should pull away, should resist this magnetic pull between them. But as his grip tightened and his eyes darkened with possession, she realized she was already caught. Dom wouldn't let her go. Not now, not ever. And deep down, a part of her didn't want him to. The morning sun filtered through the penthouse windows, but it brought no warmth to the ice in Dom's eyes. Mia watched him from across his office as he gripped his phone, his knuckles white. The call had come moments ago, and she'd never seen him this angry. "Your ex-husband," Dom's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "He's been working with the Russo family." Mia's stomach dropped. "What? That's impossible. Mark's just a businessman. He's their accountant." Dom's jaw clenched. "Has been for years. Everything that's happened, Vincent's sudden boldness, the threats, the timing of it all, it wasn't random." The room seemed to spin. Mia gripped the edge of Dom's mahogany desk, steadying herself. "No, there has to be some mistake." Dom crossed the room in 3 long strides, his presence overwhelming as he towered over her. "My sources never make mistakes. Mark's been laundering money for them, orchestrating their moves. And you?" His finger traced her jawline, making her shiver. "You were their way to get to me." "I didn't know," Mia whispered, her voice breaking. "I swear, Dom, I had no idea." His eyes softened fractionally. "I know you didn't." His hand cupped her face, the gesture possessive yet gentle. "But now we have a problem. The Russos are making their move, and your ex-husband is at the center of it." Mia's mind raced. Mark had always been calculating, but this? Her family had known him for years. Her parents still invited him to Sunday dinners, believing he was just a successful financial advisor. "My family," she breathed. "They're in danger, aren't they?" Dom's silence was answer enough. He moved to the window, his broad shoulders tense. "I'm going to handle this, Mia, permanently." The implication in his words made her blood run cold. "Dom, please. My family will be protected," he cut in, turning to face her. "But Mark needs to be eliminated, the Russos too, if they don't back down." Tears pricked at Mia's eyes. "There has to be another way. My parents, they trust him. If something happens to him, they'll be devastated. They'll ask questions." "Questions are better than bullets," Dom growled. He stalked toward her, his movements predatory. "You think Mark cares about your family? He's using them as leverage. The moment the Russos make their move, your family becomes collateral damage." The truth of his words hit her like a physical blow. Mia wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold it together. "What do they want?" "Territory. Power." Dom's hands found her waist, pulling her against him. "And they think using you against me is their way in." "Why?" Mia looked up at him, searching his face. "Why would they think that would work?" Dom's grip tightened. "Because they know what you mean to me." His admission hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. "They know I'd burn this city to the ground to keep you safe." The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. This dangerous man, this ruthless mafia boss, was willing to go to war for her. The realization both terrified and thrilled her. "I can't let you kill him," Mia said softly, "but I can't let my family stay in danger either." Then trust me. Dom's voice was low, urgent. Let me handle this my way. Your family will be protected, but Mark and the Russos need to understand what happens when they threaten what's mine. Mia's heart thundered in her chest. The word mine echoed in her mind, and she couldn't deny how right it felt, even as guilt gnawed at her. Her family's safety hung in the balance, but so did her soul. Choosing Dom meant accepting his world completely. The violence, the danger, all of it. I need time, she whispered, even as her body betrayed her, leaning into his touch. Dom's eyes darkened. Time is the one thing we don't have, Kara. His thumb brushed her lower lip. The Russos won't wait. Neither will Mark. You need to decide now. Are you with me or against me? The question burned between them, filled with promise and threat. Mia felt torn in two, caught between protecting her family and surrendering to the magnetic pull of the dangerous man before her. His touch promised safety, but his world guaranteed violence. And somehow, despite everything, she couldn't bring herself to pull away. The moonlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Dom's penthouse, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Mia paced, her bare feet silent, against the cold surface. Her hands trembled as she picked up the newspaper from his desk, the headline screaming about another mob-related shooting. 3 dead, she whispered, her voice catching. And I know you're behind it. Dom stood by the window, his broad shoulders tense beneath his tailored suit. He didn't turn to face her. You shouldn't read those. What am I supposed to do? Pretend it's not happening? Mia threw the paper down. I can't keep ignoring the bodies that pile up around you. Those men were Vincent's. They were planning to take you. His voice was cold, matter of fact. Would you prefer I let them? Mia wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stop shaking. There has to be another way. This violence, it's consuming everything. Finally, Dom turned. The moonlight cast half his face in shadow, making him look more dangerous than ever. There is no other way in my world, Mia. The rules are simple. Kill or be killed. Protect what's yours, or watch it burn. And is that what I am? Something that's yours? The words came out bitter, but underneath lay a current of fear. Fear of the answer, fear of the truth she was beginning to accept. Dom crossed the room in 3 long strides. His presence overwhelmed her, masculine and powerful. You've been mine since the moment you sat in my lap at that gala. You knew exactly what you were doing when you chose me for protection. I didn't choose this. Mia backed away, but he followed step for step. I didn't choose to be hunted by Vincent, to be trapped in this world of violence and death. But you did choose me. Dom's hand shot out, gripping her wrist. His touch was firm but not painful. Never painful with her. You could have run to the police, left the country, disappeared. Instead, you came to me. Tears burned in Mia's eyes. Because I was desperate. Because you knew I would protect you. His other hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing away a tear that escaped. Because deep down, you understood that only someone like me could keep you safe from someone like him. The truth of his words hit her like a physical blow. She had known, hadn't she? Known that only a monster could protect her from another monster. But Dom's brand of violence was different, calculated, purposeful, always in service of something bigger than mere cruelty. The bodies in the paper, he continued, his voice softening slightly. They were men who would have hurt you, tortured you, killed you. I won't apologize for eliminating threats to what's mine. Mia's breath caught as he pulled her closer, his cologne wrapped around her, familiar now after weeks in his presence. And what happens when I become a threat? When I try to leave? Dom's eyes darkened. His grip tightened fractionally. That's not going to happen. You can't keep me prisoner forever. This isn't a prison, Mia. His lips brushed her ear, sending shivers down her spine. This is protection. This is where you belong. The sooner you accept that, the easier things will be. She pushed against his chest, but he didn't budge. You're talking about Stockholm Syndrome. A dark chuckle rumbled through his chest. I'm talking about survival, about accepting the reality of your situation. Vincent won't stop. Your ex-husband won't stop. The only thing standing between you and them is me. And the price for that protection is my freedom? The price, Dom said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, is accepting the rules of my world. You're in the game now, whether you like it or not. The only choice you have is whether you'll learn to play it well or fight it until it destroys you. Mia felt the fight drain from her body. She sagged against him, and his arms immediately wrapped around her, protective and possessive all at once. I won't let you leave, ever, he murmured into her hair. Not because I want to cage you, but because I know what waits for you out there. Accept it, Mia. Accept me. Accept this world. It's the only way you'll survive. The click of a gun's safety being released echoed through the darkness. Mia's heart hammered against her ribs as rough hands dragged her through what felt like an abandoned warehouse. The stench of mildew and rust filled her nostrils. Her wrists burned from the zip ties cutting into her skin. Vincent's gonna love seeing you like this, one of the men sneered, yanking her forward. Been waiting a long time to get you away from Castile. Mia stumbled, her designer dress now torn and dirty from the struggle when they'd grabbed her outside Dom's building. She should have listened when he told her never to go anywhere without his security detail. But she'd been stubborn, determined to prove she could handle herself. Dom will kill every single one of you, she spat, earning a harsh laugh from her captors. By the time your precious Dom finds you, Vincent will have already moved you somewhere else. Somewhere even the great Dominic Castile can't reach. Fear clawed at her throat. She knew what Vincent was capable of. The memories of his abuse still haunted her nightmares. But now there was something different. Something had changed since she'd been under Dom's protection. She wasn't the same scared woman anymore. A door creaked open, and they shoved her into a dimly lit room. The concrete floor was cold beneath her bare feet, her heels lost in the initial struggle. Vincent stood by a metal table, his face twisted in a cruel smile that made her stomach turn. Finally, he purred, stepping closer. No more hiding behind Castile's empire. It's just you and me now, sweetheart. Before he could touch her, an explosion rocked the building. Gunfire erupted from somewhere above them. Vincent's smile faltered as shouts and screams filled the air. What the hell? One of Vincent's men rushed to the door, only to be thrown backward as it burst open. Dom stood in the doorway, his usual composed demeanor replaced by raw fury. His eyes, usually cold and calculating, burned with a darkness that made even Vincent take a step back. Blood splattered his expensive suit, none of it his own. I warned you. Dom's voice was deadly quiet. I told you what would happen if you touched what's mine. Everything happened in a blur. Vincent's men reached for their weapons, but Dom's team was faster. Bodies hit the floor as gunshots echoed through the room. Vincent lunged for Mia, pressing a knife to her throat, but Dom moved with lethal precision. The knife clattered to the ground as Dom's fist connected with Vincent's jaw. Mia scrambled away, watching as Dom unleashed his fury. Each punch, each brutal strike, was filled with a possessive rage she'd never witnessed before. Dom, she called out softly when Vincent lay unconscious and bloody on the floor. Dom, stop! He froze at the sound of her voice, his chest heaving. When he turned to her, his eyes still held that dangerous fire, but something else flickered beneath, fear. Fear of losing her. Dom crossed the room in 3 long strides, his hands cupping her face with surprising gentleness. His thumbs wiped away tears she hadn't realized were falling. Are you hurt? His voice was rough with emotion. She shook her head, leaning into his touch. I'm okay. I knew you'd come. Always. The word was a fierce promise. He pulled out a knife, carefully cutting the zip ties from her wrists, his jaw clenched at the sight of the raw skin underneath. I'm going to kill him. No. Mia grabbed his arm. Take me home, please. Something in his expression shifted, softened just for her. He shrugged off his jacket, wrapping it around her shoulders. The familiar scent of his cologne enveloped her, making her feel safe for the first time since she'd been taken. My men will handle the cleanup, Dom said, lifting her into his arms. She curled against his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart. No one touches what's mine, Mia. No one. As he carried her out of the warehouse, past the bodies of those who had dared to take her, Mia realized something had fundamentally changed between them. The violence should have terrified her, but instead, she felt protected, cherished even. In Dom's brutal world, this was his way of showing love. Mia stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of Dom's penthouse, her fingers pressed against the cool glass. The city lights sparkled below, but she barely noticed them. Her mind was too focused on the man who'd consumed her thoughts for weeks now. Dom's presence filled the room behind her. She could feel him watching, his dark gaze burning into her back. The silence between them crackled with tension. You can't keep avoiding this. Dom's voice was low, dangerous. You can't keep pretending there's nothing between us. Mia's heart hammered against her ribs. I'm not avoiding anything. Liar! The word came out as a growl. She turned to face him, her breath catching at the sight. Dom stood there in his perfectly tailored suit, his jaw clenched, his eyes intense. He'd loosened his tie, and something about that small display of informality made her stomach flip. I'm not lying, she whispered, but her voice trembled. Dom moved closer, each step deliberate. Then look me in the eyes and tell me you don't feel this. Mia backed up until she hit the window. The cold glass pressed against her bare shoulders, making her shiver. Or maybe it was the way Dom looked at her, like he wanted to devour her whole. I can't, she started. Can't what? He placed his hands on either side of her head, caging her in. Can't admit that every time I touch you, your whole body responds? Can't admit that you think about me at night? His words hit too close to home. Mia had spent countless nights lying awake, remembering the feel of his hands on her waist, the heat of his breath against her neck. It's not that simple, she protested weakly. It is that simple. Dom's finger traced her jawline, making her gasp. You want me. I want you. Everything else is just noise. Your world is dangerous, she whispered. My world is the only place you're safe. His thumb brushed across her bottom lip. I will kill anyone who tries to hurt you. I will burn cities to the ground to keep you protected. The scary part was, Mia believed him. She'd seen the ruthlessness he was capable of, the cold calculation in his eyes when dealing with enemies. But she'd also seen the way those same eyes softened when they looked at her. Dom... Her voice was barely audible. He leaned in closer, his lips nearly touching hers. Stop fighting this, Cara, Mia. Stop fighting me. The pet name broke something inside her. Mia's hands moved of their own accord, sliding up his chest to grip his shoulders. Dom's breath hitched, a rare show of vulnerability that made her brave. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of me? Of how much I want you. Of how right this feels when it should feel wrong." Dom's hand cupped the back of her neck, his touch possessive yet gentle. "Nothing about us is wrong. You're mine, Mia. You've been mine since the moment you sat in my lap at that gala." The memory of that night flooded back, his strong hands on her waist, his whispered promise of safety. She'd been terrified then, but now she craved his touch like air. "Kiss me," she whispered, surrendering to the inevitable. Dom's eyes darkened. "Are you sure? Once I start, I won't be able to stop." Mia's fingers curled into his shirt. "I don't want you to stop." A growl rumbled in his chest, and then his mouth was on hers. The kiss was everything she'd imagined and nothing like it at all. Dom kissed like he did everything else, with absolute control and devastating intensity. His tongue swept into her mouth, claiming her completely. Mia melted against him, her body molding to his larger frame. One of his hands tangled in her hair while the other gripped her hip, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, grew more desperate. Years of tension and denial crashed over them like a wave. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Dom rested his forehead against hers, his grip on her still tight, as if afraid she'd run. "Mine," he growled, and Mia shivered at the possession in his voice. "Yours," she agreed, and felt something shift between them. A point of no return crossed. Thunder rumbled outside Dom's penthouse as Mia paced near the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city lights below flickered like dying stars, matching her nervous energy. Her phone buzzed again, another message from her ex-husband. She'd been ignoring them for hours, but each one made her stomach twist tighter. "Put the phone down." Dom's voice cut through the silence. He stood in the doorway, his suit jacket gone, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms marked with fresh bruises. Blood spotted his white shirt, not his own. "They attacked Marco's restaurant," Mia said, her voice barely steady. "My ex-husband, he's not stopping." Dom's jaw tightened as he crossed the room. "3 of my men are in the hospital. Your ex made his choice." He took her phone, tossing it onto the leather couch. "He's using you to get to me. This is my fault." Mia wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stop shaking. "If I hadn't—" "Don't." Dom's hand gripped her shoulder, forcing her to face him. His dark eyes burned with an intensity that made her breath catch. He made his bed. When he aligned with the Russos, this was always coming. A distant explosion rocked the building. Mia flinched, but Dom barely moved. His phone rang, and he answered with a snarl. "Report." Mia watched his expression darken as he listened. His free hand clenched into a fist, knuckles white with tension. When he spoke again, his voice was deadly calm. "Find them. All of them." He ended the call, and the silence felt suffocating. "What happened?" "They hit the warehouse district. Tommy's dead." Dom's words were clipped, each one carrying the weight of promised violence. "Your ex is sending a message." Mia's legs weakened. Tommy had been kind to her, always bringing her coffee in the mornings. Now he was gone because of her presence in Dom's life. "I should leave. If I go." Dom moved so fast she barely saw it. One moment she was by the window, the next her back was against the wall, his body caging her in. "You're not going anywhere." His breath was hot against her cheek. "You're mine now. They need to learn what that means." Another explosion lit up the sky, closer this time. Dom's phone buzzed continuously, but he ignored it, focused entirely on her. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing over her lower lip. The gesture was gentle, at odds with the rage radiating from him. They think they can take what's mine. His voice dropped lower, dangerous. They think they can hurt you to get to me. His other hand slammed into the wall beside her head, making her jump. I'm going to show them exactly what happens when they make that mistake. Dom... Mia's heart raced, caught between fear and something darker, something that responded to his possessive fury. Your ex wants a war? Dom's lips curved into a cruel smile. I'll give him a war he won't survive. He pulled back slightly, studying her face. Anyone who tries to harm you will learn why the Castile family rules this city. His phone rang again. This time he answered, his eyes never leaving hers. Bring the car around and call everyone in. Tonight, we remind them why they should fear us. He ended the call, then pressed a hard kiss to Mia's forehead. Stay here. Guards are posted everywhere. No one gets in or out without my permission. What are you going to do? Mia asked, though she already knew the answer. Dom's expression was carved from stone, but his eyes blazed with murderous intent. I'm going to teach them the price of touching what's mine. He stepped back, straightening his bloody shirt. Your ex wanted my attention? Now he has it. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what happens when they threaten someone under my protection. Another explosion rocked the building, and sirens wailed in the distance. Dom looked out at his city, at the fires beginning to bloom across the skyline. They think they know violence. His voice was soft, almost contemplative. They haven't seen anything yet. The glass shattered behind Mia as she ducked beneath Dom's mahogany desk. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against her ears, trying to block out the sounds of gunfire erupting through his office. The acrid smell of smoke filled her lungs. Stay down! Dom's voice cut through the chaos. He moved like a shadow, his gun drawn as he positioned himself between her and the door. More shots rang out. Mia's heart hammered against her ribs as she watched Dom's men engage with the intruders in the hallway. The pristine walls of his office building were now marked with bullet holes and blood. Sir, they've breached the East Wing, one of Dom's men shouted from the doorway. Your ex-husband's leading them, Miss Monroe. Mia's stomach turned. Of course he was. The man she'd once trusted enough to marry was now trying to destroy everything, including her. She caught a glimpse of Dom's face, watched as his expression hardened into something terrifying. Get her to the safe room, Dom ordered, his voice ice cold. Now. No, Mia protested as two of Dom's guards moved toward her. I'm not leaving you here. Dom's dark eyes met hers, and for a moment, the gunfire seemed to fade away. This isn't a discussion, Kara. His use of the endearment, even in this moment of crisis, made her chest tighten. You're my priority. Another explosion rocked the building. Mia stumbled, and Dom caught her arm, steadying her. His touch was firm but gentle, so different from the way he handled his enemies. She'd seen him break a man's arm earlier that day when they'd discovered the first betrayal within his ranks. Boss, his right-hand man, Marco, appeared at the door, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. They're trying to surround the building. Vincent's men are with them. Of course they were. Her ex-boyfriend and ex-husband, working together to destroy the man who now protected her. The irony wasn't lost on Mia. Dom's grip tightened on his gun. Clear a path to the garage. We're moving her now. Mia watched as Dom's men moved with military precision, their loyalty to him absolute. This was his world. Violence and power, loyalty and betrayal. and she was now irrevocably part of it. "You can't protect me forever," she whispered as Dom pulled her close, shielding her with his body as they moved toward the door. "Watch me," he growled, his breath hot against her ear. They made it halfway down the corridor before another wave of attackers burst through the stairwell. Dom moved faster than Mia could track, his gun barking twice. 2 bodies hit the floor. He didn't even blink. This was the man she'd fallen for, capable of both terrible violence and tender protection. The dichotomy should have frightened her more than it did. "Boss!" Marco's warning came too late. A grenade rolled across the floor. Dom threw Mia behind a concrete pillar, covering her body with his own as the explosion rocked the building. Debris rained down around them, and Mia could feel Dom's heart pounding against her back. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, his hands running over her body, checking for injuries. "No," she gasped, dust coating her throat. "Dom, we need to—" "Don't tell me to leave you," he cut her off, reading her thoughts. "You're mine now, Mia. Where I go, you go." The possessiveness in his voice should have angered her. Instead, it made her feel safer than she had any right to feel in the middle of a war zone. This was what it meant to be with Dom. Danger and protection, violence and love, all wrapped up in one devastating package. Through the smoke, Mia could see more of Dom's men advancing, engaging the attackers. The hallway became a battlefield, and she realized with startling clarity that this was her life now. There would be no going back to her old world of normal jobs and quiet evenings. She belonged to Dom's world now, to him, completely and utterly. "We need to move." Dom's voice was steady, even as bullets ricocheted off the walls around them. He kept one arm around her waist, his gun ready in his other hand. "Stay close to me." Mia nodded, understanding that this moment marked a point of no return. She was in too deep now, had seen too much, felt too much. Dom's world had become her world, his enemies her enemies, his protection her only safety. The marble floors of Dom's mansion echoed with heavy footsteps as his men dragged in Mia's ex-husband. His once pristine suit was now wrinkled and stained, his face marked with the consequences of resistance. Mia stood at the top of the grand staircase, her fingers gripping the polished banister until her knuckles turned white. Dom's presence filled the foyer below, his broad shoulders set in a stance that radiated lethal intent. He hadn't bothered with a jacket tonight, just a black dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, as if preparing for dirty work. "You really thought you could use her against me?" Dom's voice carried through the space, soft but dripping with venom. "That I wouldn't find out about your little arrangement with the Vitelli family?" Her ex-husband spat blood onto the marble. "She was always meant to be a pawn. You're just too blind to see it." Mia's stomach churned. All those years of marriage, and she'd never known the truth about him. The man she'd once shared a bed with had been playing a longer game than she'd imagined. Dom's laugh was cold, empty of any humor. "A pawn?" He circled her ex-husband slowly, like a predator savoring the moment before the kill. "You never understood what you had. That was your first mistake." "And what's my second?" Her ex's voice wavered slightly, betraying the fear he tried to hide. "Thinking you'd live through this night." Dom's words sent ice through Mia's veins. She'd seen his violence before, but this was different. This was calculated, personal. 2 more of Dom's men emerged from the shadows, carrying what looked like financial ledgers and phones. "We found everything, boss. The wire transfers, the meeting locations, all of it." Dom's eyes never left her ex-husband's face. "You've been feeding information to the Vitellis for months, planning to use my protection of Mia as an excuse for them to move against me." He stopped circling, standing directly in front of the kneeling man. Did you really think I wouldn't have people watching every move you made? Mia's ex-husband finally showed his desperation. I can give you names. People you don't even know about. Shut up. Dom's command cut through the air like a blade. He looked up at Mia, his eyes softening for just a moment. Do you want to look away? Mia's throat was dry, but she forced herself to speak. No. She needed to see this, needed to understand exactly who Dom was, what he was capable of. Dom nodded once, approval flickering across his features. He reached inside his shirt, pulling out a handgun with practiced ease. The metal gleamed under the chandelier's light. You see, there's something you never understood about me, Dom said, checking the chamber with methodical precision. I don't just eliminate threats. I make examples of them. Her ex-husband started struggling against the men holding him. You can't do this! The Vitellis will... The Vitellis are next. Dom's voice was terrifyingly calm. But you won't be around to see that. Mia watched as Dom pressed the barrel against her ex-husband's temple. There was no hesitation, no dramatic pause, just the efficient movement of a man who had done this countless times before. The gunshot echoed through the mansion. Mia didn't flinch. She watched as her ex-husband's body crumpled to the floor, as Dom's men moved with practiced efficiency to deal with the aftermath. But most of all, she watched Dom. The way he tucked the gun away with the same care someone might handle an everyday object. The way he straightened his shirt cuffs, completely unbothered by the violence he'd just enacted. When he looked up at her again, Mia saw what she'd been trying to deny all along. This wasn't just the man who protected her. This was a man who ruled through fear and blood, who held power over life and death with the same ease others held business meetings. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, she felt a strange calm settle over her. Dom climbed the stairs toward her, his movements predatory and precise. Each step brought him closer, until he stood just below her, their eyes level. His hand came up to cup her cheek, and despite the blood on his fingers, his touch was gentle. Now you see me, he said, softly. All of me. The penthouse was quiet now. Too quiet. Mia stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights flicker below like dying stars. Her reflection stared back at her, hollow-eyed and pale. The events of the past few hours played on endless loop in her mind. The gunshots, the screams, the way Dom had moved with lethal grace as he eliminated every threat to their safety. Her hands trembled as she wrapped her arms around herself. The silk robe Dom had given her did little to ward off the chill that seemed to have settled in her bones. Behind her, she heard his familiar footsteps, measured and deliberate. He'd just finished cleaning up, a euphemism she now understood all too well. You're shaking. His voice was rough, tired. When his hands settled on her shoulders, she didn't pull away. I can't stop seeing it, Mia whispered. The things you did to him. Dom's grip tightened slightly. Your ex-husband made his choice when he sided with Vincent, when he tried to use you against me. Mia turned to face him. Dom's shirt was pristine white, but she knew what lay beneath. The violence, the darkness, the absolute ruthlessness that made him who he was. Yet his touch remained gentle as he cupped her face. You're safe now, he said. No one will ever hurt you again. Because you killed them all. It wasn't a question. Yes. No apology, no justification. Just the truth, stark and simple. Mia's hands found their way to his chest, feeling his heartbeat beneath her palms, strong, steady, unchanged by the blood he'd spilled. I should be terrified of you. Are you? She looked up into his eyes, dark and intense. No. That's what scares me most. Dom's thumb traced her lower lip, and she shivered for entirely different reasons. You've seen the worst of me now, Mia. The monster everyone whispers about, the demon they fear in the dark. I've seen more than that, she countered. I've seen how you hold me when the nightmares come, how you make sure I eat when I forget, how you... Her voice cracked. How you'd burn the world down to keep me safe. I would. His voice dropped lower, possessive. Everything I am, everything I have, it's yours now. Has been since you first sat in my lap, trying to escape a lesser evil. Mia let out a broken laugh. Some escape. I traded one dangerous man for another. The difference, Dom said, pulling her closer, is that my danger will never touch you. Others fear me because they should. You fear me because you don't have to. Her hands slid up to his shoulders, feeling the coiled strength beneath his suit. I used to dream about running away, about finding some quiet corner of the world where no one could find me. And now I know there's no running from this. From us. Mia pressed closer, feeling the way his breath hitched. The blood on your hands should repulse me. The violence in your world should send me screaming. But all I can think about is how safe I feel when you hold me. How right it feels to be here, even after everything. Dom's control visibly slipped, his eyes darkening with need. Say it, Mia. I need to hear you say it. Her heart thundered in her chest as the truth she'd been fighting finally broke free. I'm yours, Dom. God help me. But I'm yours. His response was a growl as he captured her lips, claiming her with a kiss that tasted of victory and possession. Mia melted into him, surrendering to the passion that had been building between them since that first night. His hands branded her skin through the thin silk, marking her as his own. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Dom rested his forehead against hers. Mine, he whispered fiercely, to protect, to cherish, to love. Yours, she agreed, and felt the last of her resistance crumble away. This was her choice now, not made from fear or necessity, but from the undeniable pull between them. A love forged in blood and darkness, but no, less real for its violent beginnings. The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Dom's penthouse, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Mia stood at the window, her fingers tracing patterns on the cool glass as she watched the city below come to life. The events of the past few days felt like a nightmare, but the bruises on her wrists and the lingering tension in her shoulders reminded her it had all been real. Behind her, she heard Dom's measured footsteps. He moved with the same lethal grace as always, but there was something different about him this morning. The sharp edges of his usual mask had softened, if only slightly. You should be resting, he said, his voice lacking its usual commanding tone. Instead, there was a gentleness that made her heart skip. Mia turned to face him. Dom stood there in a simple black shirt and tailored pants, looking more approachable than she'd ever seen him. The dangerous aura still surrounded him, but it felt more like a protective shield than a threat. I couldn't sleep, she admitted. Every time I close my eyes, I see... Dom closed the distance between them in 3 long strides. His hands found her shoulders warm and steady. He's gone, Mia. They all are. No one will ever hurt you again. The promise in his words sent a shiver down her spine. She knew what he'd done to keep that promise, the violence he'd unleashed, the blood he'd spilled. Yet here he was, touching her with such careful tenderness that it made her chest ache. I know, she whispered. That's not what keeps me awake. His dark eyes searched her face. Then what is it? Mia leaned into his touch, surprising them both. I keep thinking about how different everything is now. How different I am. She paused, gathering her courage. How you've changed me. Dom's jaw tightened, a flash of guilt crossing his features. I never wanted to drag you into this life. Liar, she said, but there was no heat in her words. You wanted me from the moment I sat in your lap that night at the gala. You just didn't expect to care about what happened to me after. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You're right. I didn't. His hand moved to cup her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. I thought I could keep you as a possession, something to own and control. And now? Mia's heart thundered in her chest. Now, Dom said, his voice dropping lower, I find myself wanting to give you everything, protection, freedom, whatever you need. Mia laughed softly, but it was tinged with sadness. Freedom? We both know that's not true. I'm as trapped now as I've ever been. Different kind of cage, Dom acknowledged, surprising her with his honesty. But one with open doors. You could leave right now, and I wouldn't stop you. His eyes darkened. I'd follow you to the ends of the earth to keep you safe, but I wouldn't force you to stay. The admission cost him. She could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the slight tremor in his hands. Dom Castile, the feared Mafia boss who ruled his empire with an iron fist, was making himself vulnerable to her. Mia reached up, placing her hand over his where it rested on her face. You know what's strange? I feel safer in your cage than I ever did being free. It doesn't have to be a cage, Dom said, pulling her closer. Let me show you a different way. He led her to the kitchen, where a breakfast spread waited on the marble counter. Fresh fruit, pastries, coffee. Simple things that somehow meant everything because he'd thought to provide them. As they ate in comfortable silence, Mia watched him. The dangerous man who'd terrorized her enemies still lurked beneath the surface. But now she saw other things too. The way he remembered she liked her coffee with vanilla. How his eyes softened when she smiled. The world outside was still full of threats and violence. Dom's phone buzzed occasionally with messages she knew contained orders for things she'd rather not think about. But here, in this moment, there was peace. A strange sort of peace built on blood and violence, but peace nonetheless. The morning sun filtered through the bulletproof windows of Dom's penthouse, casting golden light across the silk sheets. Mia stirred, feeling the solid warmth of Dom's chest against her back, his arm wrapped possessively around her waist. Even in sleep, he held her like she might disappear. She traced the scars on his forearm, battle marks from a life she'd finally accepted as her own. The past few weeks had changed everything. The war was over, but the quiet wasn't peaceful. It was charged with potential energy, like the calm before a storm. Stop thinking so loud, Dom murmured against her neck, his voice rough with sleep. His grip tightened, pulling her closer. I can feel you tensing up. Mia turned in his arms, studying his face. In these private moments, his usual mask of cold indifference softened. The dangerous Mafia boss looked almost vulnerable, though she knew better than most how quickly that could change. I was thinking about the future, she admitted, running her fingers along his jaw. Our future. Dom's eyes opened fully, dark and intense. Having second thoughts? No. The answer came quickly, surprising even her with its certainty. I'm just adjusting. A year ago, I was running from Vincent, thinking I could escape this world. Now you're mine. His words weren't a question, but his thumb brushed her cheek with unexpected gentleness. And I protect what's mine. Mia sat up, the sheets pooling around her waist. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, She could see the city sprawling below, Dom's territory, his kingdom of shadows and power. I know you do. That's not what worries me. Dom propped himself up on one elbow, watching her with that predatory focus that still made her breath catch. Tell me. I worry about becoming numb to it all. She gestured vaguely at the city. The violence, the danger, the way you handle threats. Images of what he'd done to her ex-husband flashed through her mind. The brutal efficiency of it, the way she'd felt relieved rather than horrified. Dom sat up fully, his bare chest marked with scars that told stories of survival. He cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his gaze. Listen carefully, Kara. The day you become numb is the day you die in this world. I don't want you numb. I want you aware, alert, and alive. His words sent a shiver down her spine. Is that why you keep pushing me to learn self-defense? To carry a weapon? I'll always protect you, he said, his voice dropping to that dangerous register that reminded her exactly who he was. But you're not some delicate flower to be kept in a glass case. You're stronger than that. You proved it by surviving Vincent, by surviving everything that came after. Mia leaned into his touch, understanding the trust he was showing by allowing her any measure of independence. For a man like Dom, control was everything. I had help, she reminded him, thinking of how he'd saved her that first night, how he'd kept saving her until she didn't want to be saved anymore. A rare smile touched his lips. You did. And now you have me forever, whether you like it or not. She laughed softly, the sound echoing in the spacious bedroom. Is that a threat, Mr. Castile? A promise. He pulled her closer, his lips brushing her ear. One I intend to keep. The city continued its morning bustle below them, unaware of the promises being made in the penthouse above. Mia knew there would be more threats, more violence, more moments when Dom's darkness would emerge to protect what was his. But she also knew, with absolute certainty, that she'd found her place in this dangerous world. I love you, she whispered against his skin, words that once would have terrified her to speak to someone like him. All of you, even the parts that frighten me. His response was to kiss her, hard and possessive, claiming her as he had that first night. But this time, she wasn't running. This time, she was home. The morning sun filtered through the penthouse windows, casting a golden glow across Mia's face as she stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows. Below, the city was waking up, unaware of the dangerous world that existed in its shadows. Dom's reflection appeared behind her in the glass, his powerful frame moving closer until his chest pressed against her back. What's on your mind? His voice was low, intimate, a tone reserved only for her. Mia leaned back into his warmth. Everything's different now. She traced her fingers over the arm he wrapped around her waist. I used to be so scared of this life, of you. Dom's grip tightened slightly. And now? Now I understand. She turned in his arms, meeting his dark gaze. The violence, the power, it's all about protection, about survival. His jaw clenched at her words. Even now, months after eliminating the threats from Vincent and her ex-husband, Dom remained vigilant. His enemies had learned a brutal lesson about touching what belonged to him. I'll never let anyone hurt you again, he promised, his fingers trailing along her cheek. A knock at the door interrupted their moment. Marco, Dom's most trusted lieutenant, entered with a tablet in hand. Boss, we've got movement on the west side. The Rossi family is testing boundaries again. Mia felt Dom's body tense, the tender lover replaced by the ruthless Mafia boss in an instant, but his touch remained gentle as he squeezed her hip. Handle it, Dom ordered. Make sure they understand the consequences. Marco nodded and left, leaving them alone again. Mia studied Dom's face, seeing the careful control he maintained, the way he balanced his violent world with their relationship. "You don't have to shield me anymore," she said softly. "I'm not that scared girl who fell into your lap at the gala." A rare smile tugged at his lips. That night changed everything. His hand slid to the back of her neck, possessive yet tender. "You tried so hard to escape me." "I didn't understand then." Mia pressed her palm against his chest, feeling his steady heartbeat. "I thought I was trading one cage for another, but with you, I found freedom in surrender." Dom's eyes darkened with desire, and something deeper, a profound connection that had been forged in blood and violence but transformed into unshakable love. "You're the only one who's ever seen past the monster," he admitted, vulnerability flickering across his features. "The only one I've ever wanted to let in." Mia rose on her tiptoes, pressing a soft kiss to his jaw. "You're not a monster, Dom. You're a protector, a survivor." She traced the scar on his neck, a reminder of the battles he'd fought. "And you're mine." His response was immediate, crushing her against his chest as he captured her lips in a searing kiss. The passion between them hadn't dimmed. If anything, it had grown stronger with each challenge they'd overcome. When they finally broke apart, Dom rested his forehead against hers. "I need to deal with the Rossi situation." "I know." Mia smoothed his jacket, a gesture that had become familiar. "Do what you have to do. I'll be here when you return." He studied her face, as if still amazed by her acceptance of his world. "You've changed too, you know. Stronger now. Dangerous in your own way." She smiled, remembering how she'd helped him navigate the political aspects of his empire, using her insight to spot threats before they materialized. "We're stronger together. That's what our enemies don't understand." Dom's phone buzzed with another message. The outside world was demanding his attention, but his focus remained on her. "Have dinner with me tonight. The rooftop." "Planning something special?" she teased, knowing his tendency for grand gestures when he wanted to make up for time apart. "Always." He kissed her once more, hard and possessive, before stepping back. "Stay close to the house today." Mia nodded, understanding the warning in his words. Even with their enemies diminished, danger was never far away. But she wasn't afraid anymore. She'd learned to thrive in this world of shadows and power, finding her place beside the man who'd become her everything. Mia stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of Dom's penthouse, watching the city lights twinkle below. The night sky wrapped around the towering buildings like a dark velvet blanket, and she could see their reflection in the glass. Her small frame and Dom's larger one behind her, his arms wrapped protectively around her waist. "Remember when I first brought you here?" Dom's deep voice rumbled against her ear. "You were so afraid." She leaned back into his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "I had good reason to be. You weren't exactly Prince Charming." His low chuckle sent shivers down her spine. "I'm still not." "No," Mia agreed, turning in, his arms to face him. Her fingers traced the scar on his jaw, a reminder of the war they'd survived together. "You're something much more dangerous." Dom's eyes darkened at her touch. Those eyes that had once terrified her now held something else. Possession, yes, but also a depth of feeling that made her breath catch. "Does that still frighten you, Kara?" "Sometimes," she admitted. It was easier now, being honest with him. The walls they'd both built had crumbled, brick by brick, through gunfire and blood and desperate touches in the dark. But not in the same way. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing across her bottom lip. Tell me. I'm afraid of how much I need you now. The words came out barely above a whisper. How right it feels to be here, even after everything, even knowing what you are, what you do. Dom's other arm tightened around her waist, pulling her closer. What I am is yours, Mia. Everything I do to protect what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have made her want to run. That's what the old Mia would have done, the one who'd been desperate to escape Vincent's clutches, who'd seen every man's touch as a threat. But she wasn't that woman anymore. The threats will never stop, will they? She asked, though she already knew the answer. No. Dom's honesty was brutal but comforting in its familiarity. There will always be enemies, always be danger. His fingers threaded through her hair, tipping her head back to meet his gaze. But they'll never touch you again, not while I breathe. Mia remembered the night Vincent had taken her, the fury in Dom's eyes when he'd found her, the way he'd torn through his enemies like a force of nature, leaving destruction in his wake. She should have been horrified by the violence. Instead, she'd finally understood the depth of his devotion. I used to think I needed to escape this world, she confessed, her hands sliding up his chest to rest over his heart. To find somewhere safe, somewhere normal. And now I know better. Mia stood on her tiptoes, pressing a soft kiss to the corner of his mouth. Safety isn't a place. It's this, us. Even with all the danger, all the darkness, I've never felt more protected than I do with you. Dom's expression softened for a moment, that rare, vulnerable look he showed only to her. Then his features hardened again, determination etched in every line of his face. I'll burn this city to the ground before I let anyone take you from me again. The words should have sounded like a threat. Instead, they felt like a promise, one written in blood and sealed with bullet casings. Mia had seen enough of his world now to know he meant every word. I know you will. She pressed closer, feeling the solid strength of him against her. And I'll stand beside you while you do it. His hand fisted in her hair, eyes blazing with that dangerous mix of possession and pride that made her knees weak. Say it again. I'm yours, Mia breathed, the words falling from her lips like a prayer. All of me. Dom's grip tightened, his voice dropping to that low, commanding tone that brooked no argument. You're mine. Forever. I hope you like this story. Please share what's your favorite part of the story and where in the world you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.